Today we're going to go over a new selection tool. It's called the Magic Wand tool. The reason why it's called the Magic Wand tool is it magically selects big chunks of area, but it selects based on things that are a similar color. So in order to activate the selection tool that we're working with today, it's going to be underneath your lasso. So if you click and hold, you'll see that there's 3 tools in this tool set. We're just going to focus on the Magic Wand today. You can also hit W 3 times to activate it, and it actually looks like a wand. The settings for the Magic Wand are just like another selection tool, right? You have make a new selection, add to, subtract from, and intersect selections. You also have the option to feather, which we'll talk about in a little while. We'll also talk about refine edge another day. But the number 1 setting you're going to have to change today is called tolerance. It's right up here in the options bar. Tolerance tells the program or the tool how picky you're being about color. A very low number means you're being super picky. You only want a short range of color being considered. A very high number means you want a large range of color to be considered. So you always want to change this number before you use this tool. If you decide to use the tool as is, you will find that it's not super helpful. Let's talk about how to start. So let's say I have my tolerance way too high. I'm going to show you what happens. I'm just going to click. I want to select the ocean. Do you see that it's also selected parts of the turtle's fin, part of their face? It's because the number is too high and I'm considering too much color. So let's put it down to something more reasonable. I like to stay between 15 and 35 because I feel like that's a reasonable number with a photograph like this. So I'm going to put 18, okay? I'm going to deselect and try again because right now I still have a live selection. So I hit select, deselect. Let's try again. I'm going to click again on the ocean. And now this time you see that it's not taken too much of my turtle. But unfortunately, it hasn't taken enough of my ocean too. With the Magic Wand tool, you always have to add to your selection to consider more of the object, okay? In order to do that, you can do one of 2 things. You can click the second button right up here that says Unite, or the lazier way or the faster way is to hold down Shift. If you hold down Shift while you click, what it will do is it will add to your selection. So all I did was hold down Shift, click again. Do you notice that it's picking up all those little pieces that maybe it didn't pick up originally, right? And it didn't start a new selections, which is what I want. Sometimes it leaves little tiny dots. I would recommend zooming in and just making sure all those little things are added to your selection. Now with the Magic Wand tool, 9 times out of 10, you actually select the thing you don't want in order to get the thing you do want. Because it's so much easier to select this block of blue than it is to select the turtle itself because of the range of colors. So what I want to do is actually get the inverse. I'm going to go up to select, inverse, and now what I actually have selected is my turtle. Let's briefly talk about some of the settings that we can use once we have a selection that we like. So I pretty much like my turtle, but I can always make it better. There's something called modifying selections that lets us tweak our selections, and it's under Select, Modify. You'll see that there are 5 settings here. A border actually adds a border to your selection, so maybe you want it to be a bit larger. Smoothing, exactly what it sounds like. If your selection looks a little jagged and you want it to be smoother, you can add a number. It's based on pixels, so the higher the number, the more it's going to smooth it out. Expand is actually the one I really like, because I think sometimes your selections could be either too tight to your object or too loose. So expand means you're going to push it out just a little bit, and you can control how much by putting a number in there. There's also contract, and this one I actually use quite often. Sometimes I get almost a perfect selection, but I want it a little closer to the animal. So I'm going to hit OK. It's going to pull in my selection by 1 pixel. And it's probably not very easy to see on the screen, but it kind of got rid of maybe a little bit of the blue that might have been remaining. And then the last thing is feather, and feathering is fine. Feathering basically slowly blends the edges out into nothing. So I'm going to show you what feathering looks like, but I don't necessarily recommend it for most of your selections. It's probably appropriate for things that are supposed to look like they're disappearing, clouds, wind, stuff like that. So if I put feather, I'm going to put 5 points just so you can see. I'm going to edit copy and edit paste my selection. Then I'm going to hide my layer. Do you see that kind of faded out look at the edges of the turtle? That's a feather. Let's go back and pretend I didn't feather. So I'm going back in my history right up here, and I'm going to show you the difference. So I'm going to, again, go to edit copy, edit paste, and my selection should be a lot more precise, and it doesn't fade into nothing. So that's how you use the Magic Wand tool, and those are a few modifications you can make to a selection once it's done. For the first check for understanding for today, we really want you to do a little reflecting on the different selection tools as well as your comfort using a selection. So we're going to share these slides with you. We're going to ask you to find your name, access your slide, and do the following. The first question tells you to write in the letter to match the selection with its function. So what you can do is simply highlight this and type in the letter that matches what polygonal lasso tool does, and do the same for the next three. Secondly, we want you to rank where you are in selections. How comfortable do you feel? You can take this arrow and drag it to any number that kind of represents. 1 is that you're really struggling, 5 is that you feel like you've really mastered it. That's going to be your first check for understanding today and an opportunity for a browse. The second part will come in once you have a little bit of work, and then you're going to bring in your Photo P file.